By October, my parents had sold their Westchester house to cover judgments with my name on them. The golden child's honeymoon photos were gone. Captions deleted. Our family group chat looked like a quiet graveyard of red receipts. I am 32. My name is Madison Hale. I am a vice president of marketing in New York City, the responsible one who thought I understood betrayal. I did not. Not until my own mother used my spare key on a promise I made to my grandfather. What they did not know was that I never leave treasure unguarded. Not cars, not accounts, not my name. If you have ever been the dependable one in a family that runs on guilt, if you have ever paid and paid until your own voice sounded distant, tell me where you are watching from. I read every comment. Tonight I will show you proof and a plan. I live in Tribeca. My parents live in Scarsdale up in Westchester. My brother Brandon is 28, the golden child. He loves applause speed and other people's money. I love something else, a 1963 Corvette split-window Restomod insured and appraised around $340,000, the exact red that once lived on a poster above my childhood desk. My grandfather taught me engines in a garage that smelled like oil and orange hand cleaner. He showed me how steel remembers. I promised him I would take care of what I built. Early June, my job sent me to Cannes, and then straight into an investor roadshow for 4 weeks. I did what looked responsible. I secured the real car in a Brooklyn storage facility with double locks and a tracker tucked under the rear valance. Then, to keep up appearances at home, I left a high-end replica in my parents' garage, a near concours decoy on loan from my boyfriend Ryan Cole, a corporate attorney with a spine of granite. I swapped keys and plates for the decoy, never the legal title. The original title stayed locked where it always stays. I do not move titles, ever. I handed my father a spare key so he could start the engine once a week. He likes the ritual. He likes the sound. That is the only reason the spare exists. My mother knew it too. Breadcrumb won a ring. Doorbell aimed straight down the driveway, always recording. Breadcrumb 2, a shared iCloud folder labeled maintenance with dates, mileage, and who touched which vehicle. Breadcrumb 3, Venmo and Zelle habits, my family writes their sins in the memo line. I did not know those breadcrumbs would become a map out of hell. I only knew I had a month of flight decks and polite smiles ahead of me and a red promise sleeping safely behind steel. Cons was lights, panels, handshakes. The roadshow was flights at midnight and pitches at dawn. I told almost no one the full plan. Ryan knew. He helped arrange the decoy and checked the storage contract line by line. My neighbor Callie, an attending physician with a radar for truth, was my emergency contact. That was it. Prepared, not paranoid. It is how the responsible one survives. 4 weeks later, I rolled up to my parents' house in a yellow cab. Hydrangeas bowed across the walk. The sprinkler arced like glass. The garage door was up. The space was empty. No red, no chrome, no machine breathing quietly for me. Just clean concrete. An old oil stain shaped like a heart that had already stopped. And that is where the story begins. Looking back now, the Corvette was never just a car. It was a ledger. Every hour I worked when Brandon skipped class was another line item. Every time I packed leftovers into plastic containers while he posted bottle service was another entry. Quiet rage can look a lot like competence. Promotions, bonuses. The smile that says, I've got it, even when no one else does. I grew up as the responsible one. My brother Brandon grew up as the promise. That is the family math. One child becomes a savings account, the other becomes a wish list. The wish list never ends. After college, I climbed. Entry level, manager, director, vice president. Total comp in the 600s. Take home each month in the mid-20s. Enough to help, which is a dangerous sentence if you were raised on guilt and gratitude. At first it was small. A tuition penalty Brandon forgot. A medical bill that caught my father by surprise. Groceries when my mother said she could not look at another bill. Then it became a rhythm. A transfer on the first of the month that my mother called a love note. $8,000 every month. She never missed the please and I never missed the send. I told myself it was temporary. Responsible people always do. We say things like until the wedding, until the new job starts, until the market turns. Temporary turned into nearly 3 years. Add it, and it is roughly $280,000, not counting the extras, not counting the flights I paid for so Brandon could play at adulthood in a different city for a weekend and call it growth. Some months dipped lower when I cut back to breathe. Some months jumped higher when an emergency appeared with my name on it. The average told the truth. The truth was a pattern. Looking back now, the clues sit in plain sight. Venmo and Zelle memos that read like captions under a painting you do not want to understand. For tux, for ring deposit, for just this once, for mom's health, for dad's property tax, for Montego Bay, My family writes their sins in the memo line. I was the one who kept the receipts because that is what responsible people do. We collect proof while telling ourselves we will never need it. The car became my yes to myself. A 1963 split window. Restamod that would have made my grandfather grin and nod. Appraised around $340,000, insured properly. Build sheet in a safe. Title locked and never leaving the folder unless it had to. That car was the promise I made when I was little, standing in a garage that smelled like oil and orange hand cleaner, while my grandfather taught me that steel remembers. It does not forget who cared for it. When the June trip landed on my calendar, cans first, then a 4-week investor roadshow, I did what I always do. I prepared. The real car went into a Brooklyn storage unit with double locks and a tracker tucked under the rear valance. The replica, a near Concord decoy on loan from my boyfriend Ryan Cole, went into my parents' garage. Keys and plates swapped for the decoy. Never the legal title. The title stayed where it lives. That sentence matters. I do not move titles, ever. I handed my father a spare key for one reason: to start the engine once a week. He likes the ritual. The sound. I log those starts in a shared iCloud folder labeled Maintenance. Date. Odometer. Who touched which vehicle? That folder felt like overkill at the time. Now it feels like a seatbelt I buckled on a sunny day. Callie, my neighbor and an attending physician, was my emergency contact while I was out of the country. Ryan, who is a corporate attorney with a spine made of rules, checked the storage contract line by line and handled the decoy loan paperwork like it was a deal memo. No one else knew the full plan. Prepared, not paranoid. That is the only way a responsible person survives a family that confuses access with love. Looking back now, I can hear the entitlement in small moments I shrugged off. The way Brandon would look at me when a bill hit the table and say, "You know you make more." The way my mother would soften her voice and say, "Family is family." The way my father would say nothing at all, like silence could be neutral when it was actually consent. I can also see my own complicity. The self-deprecating jokes I told at work about being my family's chief financial officer. The way I turned my boundaries into punchlines. It lands better at happy hour when you make it sound funny. It stings less when you make yourself the hero of a problem you created. Breadcrumbs were everywhere. I did not call them that yet. The Ring doorbell aiming down the driveway, always recording. The iCloud maintenance folder with the who and when and how long. The transfer history that reads like a calendar of taking. The private Facebook albums Aunt Linda loved to make with captions like "Family wins again." A screenshot here, a screen recording there. Nothing explosive on its own. Together a fuse. 2 images live in my head from those years. One is me in an airport lounge at 11 at night, eating cold noodles out of a takeout box while fixing a deck for a meeting at 7 the next morning, my phone buzzing with Mom's "Thank you, you saved us again." The other is Brandon laughing into a camera on a rented boat, his caption, "A confession he could not hear, living my best life." Both were true. Both sat on my credit. Looking back now, I also know why I did not stop sooner. In families like mine, love is measured in sacrifice and silence. If you say no, it sounds like betrayal. If you say yes, it feels like devotion. The responsible one learns to pick the version of pain that keeps the room calm. So I prepared for June like I always prepare. Layers of protection. Redundancies. Backup plans. The real car sleeping behind steel in Brooklyn. The decoy in Scarsdale for my father's Sunday ritual. The spare key logged and labeled. The maintenance folder shared. The cameras watching. And one more thing I did not realize would matter as much as it did. I kept every original document for the real car in my possession. Title, appraisal, insurance, build sheet. The papers that say this is mine, not because I yell loudest, but because the ink agrees. I boarded the flight to France with a quiet mind. I had meetings to run, clients to charm, a team to protect. The red promise was safe. The family rhythm could rest for a month. I told myself when I get back, I will revisit the monthly support. I will reset. I even believed it. Responsible people love a plan that begins next month. And then 4 weeks later, I stepped out of a yellow cab, looked into an open garage, and saw clean concrete where red should be. The wish list had found a new line item: me. That was the moment the ledger closed and the investigation started. I did not know the full story yet. I only knew this: when you have spent years documenting your sacrifices, you already have everything you need to prove the betrayal. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and old coffee. My mother was at the kitchen table with her favorite mug. My father stood at the sink, rinsing a glass long after it was clean. The open garage felt like a mouth missing teeth. "Thanks to your car, Brandon finally got the trip of his life," my mother said. Almost cheerful, like she was handing me a favor back that I forgot I lent her. "You sold my Corvette," I said. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. The word Corvette did the work. My father exhaled through his nose. You are a vice president, Madison. You make good money. You can buy another one. Brandon only has one youth. Family is family, my mother added. We do for each other. There it was, the script, the trap lined with satin. Breadcrumb 1. On the counter, her phone lit up with an Instagram preview. Brandon on a white deck arm around a woman I did not know, champagne catching the sun. Caption, living my best life, geotag somewhere that costs more than I made my first year out of college. I asked who bought it. I asked how much. I asked what paperwork they gave him. I smiled as if I were helping them remember. Responsible people use a smile like a crowbar. A collector, my mother said. Peter Wallace, a former Marine. He wired $280,000, took the car and the papers, and left happy. What papers? I kept my tone light. The title, she said too quickly, a bill of sale. We had it notarized. Your father handled it. My father would not turn around. Breadcrumb 2. The Ring doorbell. I opened the app with a thumbprint I set on their phone months ago when I installed it. I scrolled to the day before. There it was. The transport truck easing down the drive, my mother handing over the spare key I gave my father so he could start the engine once a week. A man with a clipboard checking a clipboard, not the chassis. You could hear my father say, it is in our daughter's name, but we handle things for her. Adult as a tone, authority as a shrug. Breadcrumb 3. Aunt Linda's Facebook album. Family wins again. She loves a caption like a sermon. I tapped through photos of centerpieces and cousins until I saw a printed itinerary on a granite island. Flight circled in pink highlighter. A note in the margin, ask mom about title. The date stamp was a week before the transport truck. In the comments, Aunt Linda wrote, when family helps dreams come true. I took a screenshot, I took 3. I stepped into the hall and that is when I heard them. My parents in the dining room, voices, hushed words built from panic and hope. She will understand, my mother whispered. She is doing so well, and Peter said the notary will be fine. We should not have signed her name, my father said. It did not feel right. It is done, my mother replied. Family is family. Breadcrumb 4. I opened the shared iCloud folder labeled Maintenance. The last entry in my father's handwriting was from 2 Sundays ago. Start. 15 minutes. Smooth idle. That meant the decoy had been here then. The real car was still sleeping behind steel in Brooklyn. I knew exactly what they sold. Not my car. Ryan's loaner. The near concours replica meant to sit in that garage like a scarecrow. Selling a car that is not yours with someone else's name on fake paperwork is not a misunderstanding. It is a plan. My phone rang while I stood in my old bedroom looking at the red poster from when I was 11. This is Peter Wallace, the voice said. Calm, military, there's a problem with the paperwork. Tell me. The bill of sale bears your signature. The notary stamp looks wrong. And the VIN, he read off the paperwork. He paused. I crawled under the decoy more than once with Ryan while we laughed about the lengths we were going to protect what mattered. I know that decoy VIN like a phone number. Peter continued. The VIN on the chassis plate I checked today does not match the VIN on the document. I need to speak with you and with your attorney. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. My nails were clean, my palms were steady. Rage makes people sloppy. Preparation keeps you still. Peter, I said, thank you for calling me. The vehicle you were shown is a high-end replica on loan from my boyfriend, Ryan Cole. He owns that vehicle. The title you were shown does not exist in my home because I do not move titles ever. If there is a document with my name on it, it is a forgery. I will have my attorney contact you within the hour. Please do not transfer, conceal, or modify anything on the car. Keep it secure. You will not be left holding a bag of bolts. He exhaled. Understood. Breadcrumb 5. I asked him to text me clean photos of what he was given. He sent 4 images. A bill of sale with my name misslanted on the last letters. A limited power of attorney that pretended to authorize my parents to act for me. A notary stamp that belonged to a notary in Queens I recognized from a compliance training slide as long expired. And a photocopy of a New York State title that tried very hard to look official and failed at the margins. I saved each file to a folder named by date and time. I made a second copy to an encrypted drive. I sent a message to Ryan. It happened. I need you here with your loan paperwork and the replica's build sheet. He replied, on my way. Breadcrumb 6. Evan, my company's head of compliance and the validator in my life, does not do drama. He does checklists. I texted him personal matter. Potential identity theft. Will loop counsel? Any risk to company? He replied, document everything. Do not use work systems. Glad you called. Breadcrumb 7. Callie, my neighbor, the anchor. I sent her a single line, I am safe. I may need you to sit with me later. She replied with a heart and a picture of a casserole cooling on her counter like an apology from the universe in a baking dish. This is important. At this point, I had suspicion turned into certainty, and certainty turned into artifacts. You do not argue with people who lie well. You do not bargain with people who think your boundary is an invitation. You collect proof, you stack it neatly, you write a timeline. Timeline. Early June, I secured the real car in Brooklyn. Left the decoy in Scarsdale. Gave my father a spare key for the weekly start ritual. Mid-June, Brandon's DMs start to glow with plans, a thing I did not notice then because I was rehearsing investor decks between flights. Late June, Aunt Linda's album, the itinerary, the note about the title. Last weekend of June, transport truck on the Ring camera, my mother handing over the key, my father playing adult with his voice while erasing adulthood with his choices. Today, empty garage, cheerful tea. The sentence, thanks to your car, the Instagram caption, living my best life, and a collector named Peter with a problem that has my forged name on it. One more breadcrumb. The glove compartment in the decoy used to hold a small black folder. Ryan kept a laminated copy of the replica's build sheet and a photo of the chassis plate inside. In the Ring clip, as the driver got in, I saw the edge of that folder tucked under his arm. Habit. He probably meant to leave it in the trunk for the buyer like a courtesy. It meant Peter had everything he needed to see the mismatch himself. And he did. I walked back into the kitchen. My mother's hands were folded now. My father had finally turned around. His face was the color of paper. I said one sentence. You did not sell my car. You sold Ryan's car using my name. My mother blinked. She reached for the line she always uses when cornered. Family is a... Do not finish that sentence, I said softly. You wrote my name where it did not belong. You handed a stranger a key that was not yours. You took $280,000 that was not yours to take. You did not help family. You robbed it. My father opened his mouth, closed it. He tried again. We thought, you did not think I said, you planned. Silence sat down at the table with us. I picked up my bag. I took one last look at the empty rectangle in the garage. Then I walked out to the street and dialed Ryan. Bring the folder with the replica's title and your loan agreement. Bring the build sheet. We are meeting a white-collar attorney in Midtown first thing. And Ryan, I added, I know exactly what they did. I need you to help me make it make sense on paper. What they did not know was that I am best when everything looks worst. I do not do scenes. I do systems. I do receipts. And the receipts were already in my pocket. On the surface, it was simple. They sold a car that was not theirs and they used my name like wrapping paper. That is the surface betrayal. But revelation rarely stops at the surface. It keeps digging until it hits the pipe that has been leaking for years. I stood in the hallway and felt everything at once. The refrigerator hummed like a long, low note. Lemon cleaner stung my nose. Outside, the sprinkler kept arcing perfect glassy loops across a lawn that did not know anything had changed. The oil stain in the garage looked like a heart that had already stopped. I put my palm on the doorframe and stared at the sky through the open garage. It was a ridiculous blue. The kind that should only happen on postcards. The sky did not care. I breathed in, out, calm as a tool. Then the deeper conspiracy started to show its seams. On the kitchen island sat the family iPad charging. The messages icon pinged once and then stilled. I tapped it. It opened to a thread named Hail Home Base with my mother's face as the thread photo. The scroll bar was a ladder back in time. 3 weeks ago, my mother, family is family. We will help Brandon get the start he deserves, my father. Not sure about the car idea, Brandon? She has plenty. This is timing. Champagnes, fireworks, a jet emoji. My mother, Peter, is solid, former Marine. The notary is handled. Handled, a quiet word doing dirty work. Deeper, a photo. Aunt Linda, again, the amateur archivist. The printed itinerary on a granite counter. Flights circled in pink highlighter. In the corner, a sticky note. Ask Mom about title. Dated a week before the transport truck showed on the Ring. I screen recorded the entire thread, timestamps and all. Airplane mode on, copy saved. That is the deeper conspiracy. And then came the pattern recognition. The kind that burns because you missed it while living it. I pulled up the shared iCloud folder labeled Maintenance. 2 Sundays ago, my father had logged the decoy's start 15 minutes smooth idle. Right below that entry lived a photo I had uploaded months earlier of the real car's title, crisp and clean filed, where it always lives. My habit had a point. I do not move titles, ever. I opened my bank app and scrolled my own history, not to move money, but to look at the story I had been writing without reading. $8,000 on the first of nearly every month for nearly 3 years. Some months lower when I tried to pull back. Some months higher when an emergency arrived with my name already printed on the envelope. Memo lines that read like a diary I did not consent to write. For tux. For ring deposit. For just this once. For mom's health. For dad's property tax. For Montego Bay. Add the extras and the favors and the flights, and the total sat around $280,000. Not a budget line. A siphon. Looking back now, I realize how much I taught them to expect. Responsible people can accidentally run a training program. We teach others how to treat us with every quiet yes. My phone buzzed. Photos arrived from Peter Wallace. 4 images. A bill of sale with my name leaning uphill at the end like a tired runner. A limited power of attorney convenient and completely fabricated pretending to authorize my parents to act for me. A notary stamp borrowed from a notary in Queens whose commission had expired years ago. A photocopy of a New York State title that tried very hard to impersonate official paper and failed in the margins where fakes always fail. I saved the files twice. I labeled them with the date and time. I added them to the timeline I had started on my phone. Surface, deeper pattern, and then like a fuse reaching the charge, everything connected. The ring clip of my mother passing the spare key I gave my father for Sunday starts. The transport truck easing away with the decoy Ryan owns. The Instagram caption living my best life in light that did not belong to him. The family thread, saying not sure about the car idea and then doing it anyway. The notary stamp that was a lie. The VIN mismatch Peter caught because the replica's build sheet in the glove box told the truth to anyone who bothered to read. What they did not know was that I had been building a case without calling it a case. Every breadcrumb had a date, every message had a time, every transfer had a memo line. You cannot argue with ink when the ink lines up. I stepped outside for air and the world did not collapse. A neighbor waved. Somewhere a kid yelled for a ball. I looked at the driveway and tried to hear my grandfather. He used to say steel remembers. I think he meant people do too if you let them. I walked back in. My parents were in the dining room. My mother's hands were folded like she was praying. My father stared at a water ring on the table as if it could tell him what to do. Here is the surface, I said. You sold a vehicle that did not belong to you and you used my name to do it. Here is the deeper part. You planned it. You found a buyer. You discussed a notary. You wrote down ask mom about title like it was a grocery item. Here is the pattern. For nearly 3 years, I underwrote this family. About $8,000 a month, some months less, some months more. Roughly $280,000. Trips, deposits, emergencies. Every time I paid, you learned I would fix it. Every time I stayed quiet, you learned silence was cheaper than respect. My mother started to say family is. I held up my hand. Do not say that to me again. Family is a verb. You do not get to conjugate it into theft. My father whispered, we will make it right. No, I said. You will follow the process that makes it right. That is different. I took one last scan of the kitchen. The lemon cleaner. The humming fridge. The family iPad turning dumb and dark as the screen timed out. I could feel the click inside me you get when a plan arrives fully formed like a tool snapping into place. At that exact moment, Ryan stepped into the doorway. Navy suit, calm eyes, a folder in his hand. He put it on the table and spoke evenly the way judges prefer. Here is what we know. The decoy is mine. The legal title to Madison's real car was never moved. The documents presented to the buyer are forgeries. The notarization is invalid. The VIN on the chassis does not match the VIN on the fabricated paper. The buyer, Mr. Wallace, has already preserved the vehicle as is and is cooperating. We will keep the civil where possible and legal where needed. My mother looked like she had swallowed a nail. Brandon appeared in the doorway behind Ryan's sunburned and smug phone already in his hand like a shield. You cannot do this to me, he said to no one and to me. Admit it, mom and dad love me more, and you cannot stand it. Pattern, spoken aloud, it landed with a thud in the quiet. I turned to Brandon. You just told the truth out loud. Keep it for your statement. Then to my parents. Here is the last layer, the part that hurts. You did not just take something I love, you tried to erase the only boundary I had left by writing over my name. I can forgive mistakes. I do not forgive erasures. This is important. When you finally see the pattern, you do not shout, you do not shake, you do not perform. You place each piece where it belongs so there is only one conclusion left in the room. Surface betrayal. Deeper conspiracy. A pattern that trained you to believe I would fund your choices forever. Connection complete. I picked up Ryan's folder. I picked up my bag. I sent a single text to Evan, confirmed identity theft indicators and potential title fraud, materials preserved, escalating to counsel and proper authorities next. He replied in less than a minute, proceed to counsel, keep chain of custody. What they did not know is that by the time they said family is family, the system was already awake. And once it is awake, it does not go back to sleep. Next came the part I am built for. Not scenes, systems, not rage, receipts. And those would start in the morning. Calm as a weapon, I used it. First evidence. I pulled the Ring doorbell clips into a clean folder. The clip where my mother passed the spare key. The clip where the transport truck idled at the curb. The clip where Brandon loaded duffels into a black SUV laughing like victory had a sound. I exported timestamps. I wrote a timeline on my phone and on paper. Digital and analog, chain of custody matters. I saved the Instagram stories before they vanished. I screen recorded Aunt Linda's album and the Hail Home Base thread timestamps included. I downloaded every Venmo and Zelle transfer with memo lines intact. For Tux, for Ring deposit, for just this once, for Mom's health, for Dad's property tax. For Montego Bay. I printed the iCloud maintenance logs showing who touched which vehicle and when. I added Peter's photos, the fake bill of sale with my name slanting uphill at the end, the fabricated limited power of attorney, the expired Queen's notary stamp, the photocopied New York State title that looked official until the margins told the truth. Second counsel? At 8 in the morning, Ryan and I sat across from a white-collar attorney in Midtown who has a gift for turning chaos into paragraphs a judge respects. Ryan placed the decoy's loan paperwork and build sheet on the table. He spoke first steady and precise. The replica is mine. The title is in my name. The spare key was misused. A sale was executed by parties with no ownership interest using forged documents. The buyer wired funds in good faith. We want the cleanest path to unwind it and to protect Madison's identity. The attorney nodded. Here is the map. 1. Preserve all evidence you control. 2. Ryan. You will file a stolen vehicle report for the replica because it left your possession without consent through deception. 3. Madison, you will file an identity theft and forgery complaint because your name was used on fabricated documents. 4. We will call the Westchester County District Attorney's intake because the actions occurred in that jurisdiction. 5. We will alert New York State DMV Title Services to place a fraud hold. 6. We will connect Mr. Wallace with his bank's fraud team to initiate a wire recall, and we will send notice to your parents' bank through counsel. 7. We will prepare a civil complaint for damages with a proposed no-contact stipulation. This is important. Notice how none of that is a scene. It is a system. Third, authorities. The DA's intake officer listened, asked for the files, and set a case number. New York State DMV Title Services flagged the supposed title as disputed and noted the VIN mismatch for the decoy. A forensic document examiner agreed to review the fake notarization. Ryan filed the stolen vehicle report for the replica, not for my real car because he owns the replica, and it left his control without consent. I filed an identity theft and forgery complaint because my name had been weaponized. Fourth, finance. I placed freezes at all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. I closed the pipeline that kept everyone comfortable. The monthly transfers to my parents ended. The auto pay that floated Brandon's car ended. I did not call a tow truck. I did not need to. The lender's clock started ticking the second the payment stopped. Lenders have their own systems. At dawn a few weeks later, those systems arrived with a soft hydraulic whine and took back what a signature could no longer justify. Fifth, the wire. I did not call a bank to recall money that was never mine to move. Peter spoke to his bank's fraud unit. Our attorney sent notice to my parents' bank and to the DA that a fraud recall was in motion. The DA flagged the transaction and the accounts for review. Banks do not move fast for drama. They move fast for documented fraud. We gave them documents. Sixth, stagecraft. Public truth requires a stage. One already existed. A baby shower for a cousin, not for Brandon, booked weeks before in a rented garden room in Westchester with more than 40 relatives and friends expected. Pastel napkins. Peonies. A cake that looked like a cloud you could slice. I did not hijack the celebration. I waited until gifts were opened and the toasts were made. Then I asked for 3 minutes and a cable to the venue screen. My neighbor Callie sat to my left like a lighthouse. Ryan stood at the back, not looming, just present. Evan arrived quietly and took a chair in the second row, a calm face that says the tape is rolling even when it is not. Family is family. I began calm as a weather report. We do for each other. I would like to show you what that has looked like at our house. Slide 1. The Hail Home Base thread. We will help Brandon get the start he deserves. Not sure about the car idea. She has plenty. The notary is handled. Champagne emojis. A jet. Laughter dimmed. Slide 2. The ring clip. My mother's hand, the spare key, the driver with the clipboard, the truck pulling away. The manicure was perfect. The choice was not. Slide 3. Venmo and Zelle transfers with memo lines. For tux? For ring deposit? For just this once? For mom's health? For dad's property tax? For Montego Bay? Date after date after date. A calendar that bled me and called it love. Slide 4. Instagram stories. Brandon on a white deck champagne hot in the sun. Caption living my best life. The room made that sound people make when the wind leaves the building. Slide 5. The forged bill of sale with my uphill signature. The fabricated limited power of attorney. The expired notary stamp. The fake New York State title that fooled no one who reads margins. I kept my voice even. No shouting, no insults, only facts. People can argue with feelings. They struggle with receipts. Brandon burst first. Admit it. Mom and Dad love me more, and you cannot stand it. His face was flushed. His phone was already in his hand, reflexively filming, then angling down when he realized the camera was a mirror. My mother reached for the old script. Family is, I lifted a hand. Please do not say those words to me again. Family is a verb. Today we are going to conjugate it into accountability. Here is what happens next. Peter's bank will process a fraud recall on the wire. My parents' bank will receive formal notice through counsel. The DA has opened a case. DMV has placed a fraud hold. Ryan has filed a stolen vehicle report for the replica that left with a key you were not authorized to use. I have filed identity theft and forgery complaints. You will cooperate. You will not contact me directly again. All communication goes through counsel, and you will make the financial harm whole not in love language in dollars. If refunds do not cover the full amount, you will liquidate assets. That can include the house. The room did not breathe. Somewhere a fork fell and sounded like the smallest bell. My father, who had been silent, said the line we tell ourselves when we want to be forgiven without changing. We will make it right. No, I said, the process will make it right. You will follow it. I thanked the host, hugged my pregnant cousin, and stepped into the hallway. Ryan squeezed my hand once. Callie handed me a tissue I did not need. Evan said, clean presentation. Then the three of us walked outside into ordinary sunshine. What they did not know was that while they rehearsed a family story, we had already built a case file. A story can be argued. A case file can only be processed. Consequence moves like weather. First the pressure drops, then the wind changes, then the storm arrives all at once as if it had been waiting around the corner. Peter's bank placed a fraud hold and initiated a recall on the wire. Our attorney delivered notice to my parents' bank and to the DA that the funds were contested. The DA interviewed Peter and thanked him for preserving the vehicle and for not making any changes. New York State DMV confirmed the fraud flag. The forensic document examiner wrote phrases that should never sit next to your name. Non-genuine signature, simulated hand-expired commission. Brandon's job offer evaporated in the way job offers do when public filings and social media tell a story recruiters would have to explain to their bosses. He called me and said, "You ruined my life." I said, "I did not touch your life. I took my name back." The lender repossessed his Mustang at dawn after missed payments that used to be covered by my auto pay. Metal straps, soft hydraulics, a quiet engine idling while a tow truck did its job. Neighbors looked through blinds. In families like mine, humiliation is educational only when it is public. My mother tried to schedule a talk. Family is, I sent back the number for my attorney and the sentence, all communication goes through counsel. My father went to ground and then surfaced with one decent decision. He listed the house. The wire recall succeeded in part, not in full. The rest became a civil obligation. Our complaint laid out the totals with the receipts, roughly $280,000 in historical transfers over nearly 3 years, plus damages tied to the forged sale and the cost to unwind it. The agreement included a civil no-contact stipulation. If they reached for me again without counsel, a judge would be the next hand they touched. By October, the Westchester house was gone. The proceeds cleared more than $410,000 in damages, penalties, refunds, and fees. Peter received his money back through a combination of the wire recall and the civil payout. The replica, which belongs to Ryan, was held briefly as evidence and then returned to him. The DA pursued what fit. I did not lobby for prison. I asked for paperwork and silence. I wanted my life back, not a headline. Aunt Linda deleted her album. The baby shower turned into a parable told in whispers about what happens when you treat the responsible one like a credit line with a heartbeat. At work, I told HR only what compliance required. Evan sent one line, "You did this by the book." Callie left another casserole with a note that said, "Breathe anyway." Ryan set the folder on my coffee table and said, "We are done here unless they break the agreement." And then he looked at me the way a person looks at a door that has finally been unlocked. I made exactly one post, calmly anonymous, on LinkedIn, a short essay about ethics boundaries and financial enmeshment in high-achieving families. It traveled on quiet legs, thousands of comments. Women in finance, veterans, people who have been the ledger for a decade and do not know how to close the book. I read as many as I could. I wrote back when I had words. Sometimes I just left a heart. Sometimes I left a sentence: "You are allowed to keep what you earned." Here is what never happened. I did not reconcile. I did not shrink the story to make holidays easier. I did not accept a vague sorry. A civil no-contact order is not a sentiment. It is a boundary with teeth. And here is what did happen. My credit stayed frozen until I felt like thawing it. My monthly budget recovered its shape. My mind did too. Silence returned to my apartment and felt like space, not like abandonment. The Corvette slept safely behind steel when I was not driving it. And when I did drive it, the engine sounded like a promise I had kept to a little girl who learned how to listen to metal. Justice is rarely cinematic. It is signatures and holds and payments and returns. It is dignity maintained when someone tries to throw paint at it. It is walking past the kind of public mess you used to clean for everybody and leaving it where it belongs. Time jump. A clean fall morning on the Hudson River Parkway. The real split window hums a steady low song. The bridge ribs flick past like a metronome. I take the Yonkers exit and pull up to a warehouse with the kind of windows that make light feel like a material. Inside, we built something I wish I had at 22. A training space for women veterans who want to learn the trades: welding, wiring, engines. We named the scholarship after my grandfather. The logo looks like a spark plug with a halo. If you know, you know. I park. The engine ticks while it cools. My hands stay on the wheel for a long breath. Steele remembers. So do I. Callie waves from the workbench, hair up, safety glasses on. Evan drops off a box of gloves and leaves a dry joke on the whiteboard. Ryan stands at the bay door with coffee and a look that says, "We survived the hard part and now we get to live." A few women from the finance group roll in with donated tools. This is my chosen family. Not because we share blood, because we share boundaries. Here is the quiet lesson I did not know I needed. You can love a family and still refuse their invoice. You can be generous and still say no. You can be calm while you pull every breadcrumb into a line that leads you out of the forest. You can keep your name. If you are watching this and your chest feels tight, this is important. You do not need a Corvette to claim your life back. You need a ledger. You need proof. You need one person who will sit beside you and say, "This is the next call," then the next, and the next. You need to choose silence that heals over silence that hides. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself? What did you pick? What did it cost? Tell me where you are watching from. Your stories make this community stronger. If this helped, subscribe for more true stories about boundaries, betrayal, and the quiet kind of power. I read every comment I can, and when I cannot, I still see the names. What they did not know when they sold the wrong car is that I am the responsible one. I do not do scenes, I do systems. I do receipts, I do endings that hold. The light shifts. The bay door rises, engines answer. Freedom does not always roar. Sometimes it idles, steady, patient, a heartbeat made of steel and choice. And steel remembers.